Business Focus with Kudzie, Sharara on the Champions League breakfast.
Good morning and welcome to Business Focus. As always with Kudzie, Sharara, right here on Capitalk as we discuss a lot of what's happening in the world of business. That's what we are talking about today. Kudzie is not with us in the studio, but be that as it may, we're still going to be discussing a lot of what's happening in the world of business. So you've got questions to do with business, drop them up on our WhatsApp platform 0719100404, and we'll be able to post them out to Kudzie for some responses. Good morning to you, Kudzie. How are you doing today?
Good morning, Tinashe. Good morning, everyone.
Okay, great, Kudzie. Let's begin with the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange trading update for yesterday.
Thank you, Tinashe. So the ZSE closed in the negative territory yesterday, albeit with marginal losses being recorded across the board. The all-share index was down by 0.67%. The top 10 index losing 0.99%. And this was on the back of losses in dairy boards, being the biggest loser, down by 15% rather. That's dairy board. And just talking about dairy board, there's the latest report coming from the Dairy Farmers Association of Zimbabwe that the country is producing more milk than it was producing last year. So in the first 9 months of the year, there was an 18% growth in milk production to 85.05 million liters, up from 71.91 million liters last year, same period last year. So Zimbabwe requires about 120 million liters of milk for consumption. However, looking at that, we are producing now at 85 million. Which means that we have got a deficit in terms of milk production, and we import our milk in powdered form from South Africa and probably other countries, but mainly from South Africa. So we need to grow our dairy head so that we can produce our own milk. At the moment, we are supplementing with imports from other countries. So that's but I think players, as we heard from Ndoro from Dairy Board the other day, that players in the sector, they are doing a lot in terms of supporting farmers so that we can grow our milk. Also, I think also just related to milk production in the country, I think we have got a high cost of milk production. That's why you find that milk produced locally, maybe at farm gate, like when the milk processors get milk from the farm gate, they are probably getting that milk at maybe 60 cents, and yet in countries like South Africa, it's less than 30 cents. So that's why our milk is a little bit more expensive than milk from other countries. And one of the reasons why our milk is expensive is to do with the price of feed. It's really expensive here in Zimbabwe, stock feed. So I think there's really need to do a lot of work in that aspect. If we are to reduce our import bill, then it means that we need to look at some of these things to make sure that we support our dairy farmers and we produce our own milk. So that's related to dairy board there. It was the biggest loser yesterday. Also down was TSL down by 9.37%. And talking about TSL, remember they've announced their plans to acquire a 51% stake in Nampec, and I'm not sure whether the drop yesterday is a result of investors not happy with that transaction, where we understand they are paying a little bit more. They are paying a premium to the price at which Nampec is currently trading. So that's TSL there, and probably how the market is reacting to that. VFEX also down by 8.47%. Nikkei also coming off by 5.68%. And just staying with Nikkei there, remember that recently they fired their CEO. Well, a sitting board fired their CEO, Malcolm Crawford, and unfortunately or fortunately, we saw Executive Chairperson John Moxon coming through with a statement in the paper saying that the firing of the CEO was not done following the procedures, the right procedures. So I'm not sure whether that is going to be reversed, but that's the statement that came from John Moxon to say the CEO was not supposed to be fired. And then also on the downside is CBZ, down by 5.33%. And staying with CBZ, news coming from the group through a cautionary statement that was released yesterday is that their transaction to make a mandatory offer rather to the minority shareholders in FML. Remember, CBZ is now the major shareholder of FML, and according to the listing rules of the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange, CBZ is supposed to offer to buy out minority shareholders in FML, but they are yet to make that mandatory offer to minority shareholders because the transaction has not yet got approval from the Competition and Tariff Commission. So the Competition and Tariff Commission has not yet approved the transaction where CBZ is acquiring First Mutual Life. So they have been given an extension by the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. There's a period that they should have completed the mandatory offer, but the ZSE, because of the issues, the Competition and Tariff Commission, which has not yet finalized its assessment of the transaction, CBZ has had to seek an extension from the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. So that extension has been granted up to the 30th of November, within which a mandatory offer must be made to the remaining shareholders of FML Holdings. So that's with CBZ there, which was also amongst the losers. However, the market was not short of risers. ZSE being the top riser with a 14.29% gain. Tanganda also putting on 13.02%. We know the story of Tanganda. We have spoken about it here. It's subject to delist from the ZSE and list on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange, and also planning to raise $7.7 million. Okay, Zimbabwe also positive, up by 7.24%. Nampec up by 3.13%. We spoke about Nampec earlier. It's a majority shareholder, that's Nampec South Africa, looking at selling to TSL. Africa also positive, up by 0.23%. Just looking at where investors were putting their money, the bulk of the funds that were invested yesterday went into Delta, about $4.2 million. And tomorrow, Delta will be releasing its half-year results, and they'll be having their analyst briefing tomorrow for that Delta. Those are the numbers that we are looking forward to, just to see how the company is performing, whether they will declare a dividend, and whether Zimbabweans are drinking a lot of beer and soft drinks. So looking forward to the numbers from Delta. That is for tomorrow. So that's most investors putting their money into Delta. Nickel's also getting about 829,000, Econet 124,000, NNB 100,000, and then TSO 34,000. So that's how the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange traded yesterday.
All right, Kudzie, thank you so much for that. We have a question from Pauline here. It says that looking at global influence, can we say investors are influencing local market sentiment? And what is the impact of global economic uncertainty?
Yeah, thank you for that. So when it comes to global investors, Zimbabwe used to have quite a healthy portfolio, a healthy number of what we call portfolio investors. So portfolio investors are those that come in to invest in your stock market. They are different from those who come to invest directly into various sectors, manufacturing, tourism, agriculture. Those we call foreign direct investment. But we also have portfolio investors who come through to invest on our stock markets. And we used to have quite a healthy number. But since dollarization, I think from the 2016, we lost quite a significant number of foreign investors. One of the reasons why we lost these numbers, significant numbers of foreign investors, was that they were failing to repatriate their dividends, for example. They were also failing to repatriate when they make sales on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. They will fail to repatriate the their earnings back to their countries, and they started moving out of the country. Some of them began to use Old Mutual. They would buy Old Mutual here. Well, for example, they would sell any other stock, buy Old Mutual, and then remove the Old Mutual shares and sell them on the London Stock Exchange or the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. So our number of foreign investors on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange has significantly reduced. And even their participation, we are not getting that much in terms of new funds coming from foreign investors. So when you don't have foreign investors investing in your market, it also means the global foreign investors do not have much of an influence on your market. That's what it means. So we don't get that much influence from what is happening globally. In the past, they would flock, for example, to Zimbabwe. Like when we dollarize, investors will come to Zimbabwe because the earnings that they were getting in Zimbabwe, you could get double-digit earnings, double-digit returns on your investment. And you could not find that anywhere else in the world where shares that are in US dollar denominated go up by 100%, by 200%. So Zimbabwe was giving very good returns. But that has since changed because of the issues that we have had. Also with our currency, for example, if we are invested on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange and you get to sell your shares, that money, you get it in ZiG, right? But then to convert ZiG into US dollars so that you can repatriate to your country becomes a challenge. So that has affected us in terms of foreign investors and their impact on the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. And then in terms of global development, it also depends now on what sort of global development, economic development we are talking about. For example, the Russia-Ukraine conflict resulted in price increases, for example, of wheat, and obviously that could spill here into Zimbabwe. The price of fuel at some point, we also saw the price of fuel going up because of that Russia-Ukraine conflict, and it affected how the price of fuel across the world, including Zimbabwe. So yes, there are global economic events that have got an impact on Zimbabwe. Right now, we are talking about the elections in the United States that are going to take place today. The U.S. is going to vote, and there's going to be an impact in terms of, for example, how the dollar will react, for example, to a Donald Trump presidency. The dollar, how will it react? Will it rise? Will it fall? And these are things that will also affect us. And they are happening on the global scale, but they might affect us. So if, for example, you look at the dollar, how it has performed over the years, you find out that under President Bill Clinton, the dollar gained by 19.61% of its value. And obviously it means the dollar strengthening. And in Zimbabwe, we use the dollar. It means we will now be using a much, much stronger US dollar, which might not be good if we want to export our manufactured products because they become expensive. We also become an expensive tourist destination for those who are coming to Zimbabwe using other currencies which are not the US dollar. For example, if it strengthens like that. And then under President George Bush, the dollar lost 22% of its value, which means that the dollar became weaker against other currencies. Then under the Republican presidency, during the period where the U.S. had the Republican presidency, the dollar lost about 36.17%. So these are some of the global issues that affect us here in Zimbabwe in terms of our economy.
All right, I will say it on that one, Kudzie. We have Mazimba Cooper in Greendale saying that over the weekend on social media, he says, I saw a news article saying that Pick n Pay was putting out of a deal NetTM, the supermarket. Could the firing of the CEO be the reason, or it's more economical since some branches were closed?
I think what happened is that that statement we spoke about, which was released by John Moxon, who is the chairman of Miku and probably the major shareholder in Miku, in fact. He said that the decision that was made by the board, which apparently appointed his son as the new CEO, and he said the decision was likely to jeopardize the deal with Pick and Pay. So it means that the current CEO, who is also who had reverted back to being MD of Pick and Pay, if they did not handle the case properly, the firing of the CEO, according to Moxon, it was going to affect the Pick and Pay deal. So I think maybe this news outlet became sensational and say Mikus was pulling out. You know how it is with some media outlets. They then sensationalize issues. But the fact of the matter from John Moxon is that he feared that what had been done to fire the CEO could, and I'm using could, jeopardize the deal with Pick and Pay. Although there hasn't been any news that Pick and Pay is pulling out of Zimbabwe as yet.
All right. Thank you so much, Kudzie, for that response to the question. We've got another one as well coming up with 6 minutes to go now. This one says, Kudzie, you ask it, Kudzie, how do we grow our taxi base? My question is, does the proceeds from our minerals add to our 4 billion? What happens to the minerals?
Yes, thank you for that question, Tinashe and the listener. Yes, so our minerals, we get, as a country, we get what are known as royalties, which means that for every dollar that the miners make, there's a certain percentage that goes to our government in terms of what they call royalties. So that's one way that we are benefiting. Although there have been complaints by some sectors, economists included, to say the royalties that we are getting as a country from our resources are too little. They would want royalties to be increased, but at the same time, you have got the miners themselves saying that no, we are paying too much in terms of royalties. Can those royalties be reduced? And so there's need to then see to say where do we get to benefit more? For example, I'm just trying to look at some of the royalties that we miners pay. So, for example, you look at platinum miners, for example, those who are into platinum miners, they pay 7% in terms of royalties, and up from 2.5%, it was increased from 2.5% to 7.5%, which means that for every dollar that they make, the country gets about 7% in terms of the royalties. Gold also has its own royalties that are paid. I think for diamonds it's about 10%. So for every dollar that the diamond miners make, 10% goes to the fiscus. However, it hasn't been that much in terms of what we get from that. Its impact on the fiscus or on what government collects. And then also, when these miners are operating in Zimbabwe, when they pay their employees, and the employees who contribute pay as you earn, so it means that whatever the company is generating and pays to its employees, the country also gets in terms of pay as you earn. And then also when the company is profitable, when the company is profitable, there is what we call corporate tax, which the company is supposed to pay, and the country gets to benefit from that as well. So this is how the country is benefiting from its mineral resources, through royalties, through taxes that employees who work for mining houses contribute, as well as from profits that the miners also pay in terms of corporate tax, as well as whatever local spending that the miners do is also benefiting. For example, if it's a miner, it's a platinum miner, and it's paying for goods and services locally, the country will also be benefiting from that. So that's what I can say when it comes to how the country is benefiting from its mineral resources.
All right, Kudzie, another question as well coming up on our WhatsApp platform. It says that is the price of shares controlled by the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange policy, or there is no cap?
Come again on that one, Tinashe.
The question says, is the price of shares controlled by the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange policy, or there is no cap?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So there is what they call, on the ZSE, there's a cap for some companies. Like, for example, big companies, your Deltas of this world, your OK Zimbabwe's, your CBZs of this world. There is a cap. They can, on a given day, on a daily basis, the maximum they can go up by is by 15%. That's the big companies. However, the smaller companies, what we call small cap companies, they can go up by as much as they want. That's why you saw the other day, we saw Ariston going up by 100%. So there is no limit in terms of the gain they can record on a daily basis. So on the cap is only for big companies and it's only on a daily basis. It's not like the whole year they say, okay, this year a company is only allowed to go up by so much. It's only for on a given day. So it can continue to go up like what is happening with NAMPEC. Every day it's going up by 15% because that's the maximum allowed by the Zimbabwe Stock Exchange. So yes, to answer the question, yes, there is a cap on some companies on a daily trade, and there is no cap on other companies.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Kudzie, for Business Focus for today. We discuss more tomorrow. Have yourself a great Tuesday.
Thank you, Tinashe.
Business Focus with Kudzie Sharara on the Champions League Breakfast.
And then